An introduction to trading Magic the Gathering cards. Is Goblin Guide a fair trade for 2 Hallowed Fountains? Does it matter if the fountains are from original Ravnica versus Return to Ravnica? What if the Goblin Guide is from Modern Masters 2017? Does that change the value any? Will a throw-in of a foil Smash to Smithereens make this a better trade? In whose favor? Is it still okay to trade if you're on the losing end of a few cents of value? This video will show you the means to answer those questions and more. It will cover setting up and maintaining a trade folder, proper trade etiquette and theory including uptrading, downtrading, throw-ins, and of course pricing. Trade folder setup and maintenance. While there's no absolute method by which to sort your cards within your trade folder, having some system is preferable to having none at all. Why? Because just having a disorganized trade folder might mean that your trade partner could pass over potential trades. This is a headache. I'm looking for the Tron lands, and I can only spot one of them, even though this folder has all 3. If these had been better organized, it would have been easier for me to identify that you had the cards I was looking for, and we might have been able to work out a trade for them. Thus, organization, if only just a little, is key. There's many orders by which you can organize your trade folder, several of which I cover in my video, How to Sort and Organize Your Collection, but the simplest, of course, is just by color. I'd say that sorting by color is the minimum by which you should organize your folder. Other methods are by color and rarity, color and set, color and financial value, and color and format, which is my organization of choice. By having a section for my modern trades, standard trades, commander, and maybe even pauper trades, and so on, players who only play 1 or 2 specific formats can go exactly where they need to go to browse the cards most relevant to them. Again, doing what you can to ensure your trade partner is able to find the cards of yours that they may want to trade for is in your best interest, so a few minutes spent keeping your trade folder at least somewhat organized is usually worth it. Next, let's cover a very important rule when it comes to setting up and maintaining your trade folder. Do not put cards in your trade binder that are not available for trade. While this may seem like an obvious rule, players will oftentimes include maybe cards that are much more heavily skewed towards not being available for trade, but which they have included in the binder with the idea of an extremely unlikely but highly desired trade. This is both unproductive as well as highly frustrating to your trade partners, especially if, after they have spent some time searching through your folder, asking you to search theirs, and having selected a card or cards from your folder, you then suddenly declare, ooh, actually that's not really something I want to trade. So if you have a card for which you feel, I am not sure I am willing to trade this, then that card should not go in your trade folder. Only cards you are comfortable trading away should be in the trade folder. Please note, it is perfectly fine to have a maybe folder or a maybe section of your trade folder for these maybe cards, but you should have it clear that those cards are intended as maybe trades only. Trade etiquette and procedure. An ideal trade is one card or one selection of cards exchanged for another card or selection of cards of equal or near equal value. Typically, an imbalance of up to about 50 cents, maybe as high as $1, can be acceptable for a fair trade. However, there are many factors that should be considered when trading, which can complicate this. Are you trading cards that may be rapidly going up in value for cards that may be rapidly going down in value? What about trading a large selection of low-value cards for one high-value card? Before we can cover any of that, let's start with the basic concept of card pricing. Where and how do you get your card prices from? How do you know what your cards are worth? There are many online sources and stores that can be used for determining the value of your Magic cards. These include, but are not limited to, Card Kingdom, sponsor of this channel, TCG Player, Cool Stuff Inc., Magic Card Market, and many, many more. So from among these, which is the best source to determine the pricing of your card? Answer: there really isn't. So long as both you and your trade partner are determining value from the same source, then you could equally benefit by using Channel Fireball pricing or Card Kingdom pricing, or as many players prefer, TCG player pricing. The key is that you are deriving your values from the same source. Now, even though this channel is sponsored by Card Kingdom, when trading, I prefer to always look at cards on scryfall.com to see the values listed. You see, not only can I see the card value in US, Euro, and online ticks, but it is derived from the lowest price available on a daily basis from multiple sources. As you can see, listed down below are the main sellers. We've got TCG Player, where they're pulling the market price, Card Kingdom, and many more. So you can easily find card value just by using Scryfall. For example, here is the Goblin Guide from Modern Masters 2017, and it is currently shown at a value of $15.40. Let's say my trade partner would like my Goblin Guide, and so, after looking through their trade folder, I remove 2 Hallowed Fountains, which TCG Market has at $8.39 each. The offer is 2 cards valued at $16.78 in trade for 1 card valued at $15.43, leaving a difference of $1.35 in my favor. If the difference was only 35 cents, say, it would be reasonable to just round down and call this a fair trade. But at $1.35, the best option would be for my partner to look through my folder for a card or 2 that make up the difference of that dollar and change. So after looking through my folder, my partner finds a Hellspark Elemental valued at $1.22. They're going to use this in the same deck for a modern mono-red burn, I guess, so now they ask for the Hellspark and Goblin Guide in exchange for the 2 Hallowed Fountains, leaving the difference in value at only 13 cents my favor, which is obviously close enough to consider this a fair trade, and if both parties are happy and comfortable, one that can go through. This is why keeping and including dollar rares, foils, even foils of regular commons and uncommons, $1 to $2 cards, even some 50-cent cards that see play in various formats, can facilitate more trades. I've known some traders to even maintain a separate folder of cards priced at $2 and under, exclusively for evening out deals, a throw-ins folder. When looking at our example of 2 Hallowed Fountains for 1 Goblin Guide and a Hellspark Elemental, we see 2 cards for 2 cards. All are modern playable with uses in a few other formats and a fair trade. But what if instead of the Goblin Guide, I had offered my partner a Vraska's Contempt? Valued at $14.99, you might think this is essentially synonymous with the $15 Goblin Guide. There's another factor that is critical to take into account here. Vraska's Contempt is a card that has value because it is played in Standard, and, at least as of the filming of this video, is not played outside Standard, whereas the Hallowed Fountains are modern staple lands. When Vraska's Contempt rotates out of Standard, or even just falls out of Standard play, its value is likely to tank, whereas the only thing to decrease the value of the Hallowed Fountains would be the reprinting of them, something that would likely only have a temporary effect. Typically, even when they are the same value, trading Standard cards for cards played in Modern or Legacy is seen as advantageous for the person receiving the Modern or Legacy cards. Another factor to consider is time as it relates to rotation. Standard rotation happens once per year with the release of the fall set. As rotation approaches, all cards rotating out of Standard typically decrease in price. Of course, the lowest period will likely be after the rotation itself, subject of course to whether or not the card is seeing play in formats like Modern or Legacy. This is when the prices really tumble, so key trading period is between the summer and fall set. Uptrading, downtrading. Uptrading is the act of trading many smaller valued cards for 1 or possibly 2 higher valued ones. More extreme than the previous example of a Goblin Guide and Hellspark Elemental, uptrading might be much more along the lines of trading 2 Hellspark Elementals, 1 Boros Signet, an Urza's Mine, a Lightning Bolt, an Explosive Vegetation, and a Kodoma's Reach for 1 Hallowed Fountain. This is uptrading 7 cards for 1, or in the case of your trade partner, they would be downtrading 1 card for 7. Although value here is balanced, downtrading, breaking 1 or 2 cards apart for half a dozen or more smaller ones, is typically considered less desirable, but there are many situations where you might do so. I remember one time that I traded someone a single, fairly high-value mythic for a very large stack of 50-cent to $1 rares. The person I was trading to was certainly very happy to unload those low-value rares and get one that he'd play with his standard deck instead. And I, in that situation, was happy to downtrade because I had uses, it turned out, for many of those cards in things like my commander decks or a pauper deck, and others were ones that I felt might increase in value over time. Again, uptrading is fine as long as the person downtrading is happy and comfortable with it, and I was in that situation. I'll give you another example. My throw-ins folder is made up almost entirely of common and uncommon foils. These are all very worthless cards that I just happen to crack in foil, and I keep them handy as throw-ins, but they're terrible, terrible foils. They have little to no value. One time, I happened to find a trade partner who maintained a jank cube, a cube of absolute terrible cards, and he had a little quirk about it. He wanted them to all be blinged out, all foiled out. So he was really shocked and delighted to see that I had pages and pages of pack-fresh trash foils. And after pulling literally, it must have been about 30 of these 20 to 40 cent foils out of my folder, I was able to uptrade them all for, actually, I think it was a shock land. I was thrilled to get that shock land, which actually was in standard at the time, but I also made sure to say to my partner, "Are you sure about this? That's a lot of trash for treasure." But he knew very well the value and was ecstatic to get the cards. He had a use for them. These are 2 examples of uptrading and downtrading, and as always, the key is being open about value and ensuring both parties are comfortable with the trade. Declining trades. So if everything in your trade folder is something you are comfortable trading, does that mean you accept all fair offers? No, of course not. Never ever feel pressured to do a trade if you feel uncomfortable or unhappy about it. Period. If someone is offering you a trade and it's a card that you doubt you will ever play, it's okay for you to say, "Sorry, I don't really need that card." If someone is wanting to trade you a bunch of smaller cards for your more expensive card, it is fair to say, "Sorry, I'm not interested in downtrading," and so on. The ideal trade situation is you and a friend both looking through each other's trade folders, taking the cards out that you want, comparing piles, and hopefully reaching a fairly equal match of cards, so that essentially you are letting go of cards that you don't want and gaining cards that you do. When and where to trade. The most common place to look for trades is during events like Friday Night Magic and the Standard Showdown at your local game store. Each store is going to have its own policy towards trading. However, the generally accepted etiquette is that trading between players should more or less be allowed without restriction, so long as cash is not changing hands. Typically, you should not do any cash transactions with another player at a store, because as opposed to a trade, this is actually using the storefront for your own business, however small that business might be. This can be rather frustrating when you want a $5 card from another player, but have no $5 trades to offer, and are just happy to spend the darn $5 to get this card that you want. The solution is, of course, to spend that $5 at the store. So some things you might consider is asking the store if it's okay to buy your trade partner a $5 card from their catalog of singles and then use that card to trade them with. Or, as I've done in some cases, ask if it's acceptable to just put $5 on that person's store credit, assuming the person is okay with this as well. Again, attitude will vary from store to store, but so long as the money changing hands is with the store itself, most shouldn't have a problem here. Beyond that, the only phrase you need to know to begin your trade is, "Anybody got any trades?" Asking this 5 to 10 minutes before the start of an event is usually the best time, as is asking when the event comes to a close. Remember to be respectful of another person's trade folder and the cards within, just as you'd like them to be respectful of yours. Ask before taking any cards out unless they've already said it is okay to do so, and treat those cards with care when you do. And of course, don't ever leave your trade folder unattended, and keep a reasonably watchful eye on it as your prospective partner looks through it, especially if there's someone that you don't know too well yet. Many Magic the Gathering players have trepidation about trading and are oftentimes fearful of getting sharked. While this is indeed a possibility, keeping yourself well informed as to your card's value and resolute not to make any trades that you feel uncomfortable with is the surefire way to make sure that this does not happen. Trading can actually be a great way to meet new players at your local game store, break the ice, and possibly even make new friends. If nothing else, you might finally be able to find a way to turn those cards that you have no interest in playing into something that will be part of your collection for years to come. And this video is brought to you by my and many other people's local game store, Card Kingdom, a brick-and-mortar pillar of this community, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. These are the people that keep Tolarian Community College going and growing strong. So thank you.